Hey guys, I got some time before I have to clock in this morning, so I just want to make a couple interesting points. First off, I want to say this. As a Catholic Christian, I believe there is one God and one Father of all. So whether you are black, white, or brown, you're either my brother or my sister, and you are made in the image of God, and I will treat you with the respect and dignity that a child of God deserves. But in our political environment, the left has set the rules. And just like if you're playing in a sport, if you're in a boxing ring, you got to fight by the rules set. You can't kick somebody. If you're playing football on a football field, you got to play football by their rules. So the left-wing media in this country, they're the mainstream media or the lamestream media, whatever you want to call it. And the Democrat Party has set these rules about identity politics, and everything is your identity. That's what matters, your skin color, your gender. So I'm going to make some interesting points, but the most important point that you really need to listen up to is Kamala Harris's extreme anti-Catholic bigotry that she has displayed her entire political career. So first off, Kamala Harris's great-grandparents immigrated from Ireland. So our great-great-grandparents immigrated from Ireland. Her grandmother's maiden name was Finnegan, which is funny because Joe Biden says his ancestors in Ireland are the Finnegans. Her great-grandfather's name was Hamilton Brown, and they actually has a town named after him called Browntown, which is kind of funny since she was the mistress of Willie Brown. We'll get to that later. So they immigrated from Ireland, and her great-grandfather, Hamilton Brown, was the largest slave plantation owner, which is kind of interesting since, the liberals always talk about white privilege and how we inherited our wealth from the slaves, where in fact, when Britain banned slavery, they paid her grandfather what would be equivalent to $11 million cash, and what would be equivalent today to $11 million. So she has generational wealth from slaves. And then somewhere along the line, down to her father, it looked like a black Jamaican, they married, some Jamaican blood in there, and Jamaicans, a lot of Jamaicans came from Africa, so she may have a little bit of African Jamaican blood in her genetics. And her father immigrated to America and married her mother, who was fully from India. So she identifies as a Indian Jamaican. Now, when I was born, my mother had Rh negative blood. Now they give you a shot if you have that, because if you have Rh negative blood and your baby's born with O positive blood, the baby dies quickly unless he gets 100% complete blood transfusion. Well, I had O positive blood. So my father was working in a factory in Newark, New Jersey, and he asked all his friends their blood types, and it just so happened that all the guys with O positive blood happened to be black. So it was, I believe it was 3 of his black friends and my dad. So you can say I had 3/4 black blood since the day I was born. Now, obviously, our body gets rid of blood, continuously, and we're continually making regular blood. So I don't have the blood that I was given back then. But that's really why it's so ridiculous to judge people by their race anyway. But this is the game that the liberals set up. So I think I have more black blood in me at one time. I had more African American blood than Kamala Harris ever did. But, people identify by other reasons, like your environment, how you grew up. So Kamala Harris grew up in Berkeley, California, which The black population is 7%. I grew up in Irvington, New Jersey. The black population is 87%. So we have 80% more blacks where I grew up than she grew up. So I probably identify with black people more easily than she does. And, they always want to bring up wealth, white privilege, wealth. Well, the average person in Berkeley, medium income is household income is $105,000. The medium household income in Irvington, New Jersey is $50,000. So it's like double. And then her father had this generational wealth from his slave owner great grandparents. So he was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. And so she was born, her father was a professor at Stanford. I looked up, like, the highest paid Stanford professors make like $400,000 a year. The average is like $250,000. And her mother, I believe, is a scientist, a researcher, a medical researcher who makes a lot of money. So she was born very wealthy, had all the privileges of going to the best colleges, the best law school. My dad worked in a factory, never owned a house. Even when he died, he still was renting. We grew up in an apartment building in Irvington. I joined the Navy. And the only way I got in the Navy, I had to get an exemption because I was a high school dropout. And my recruiter said, man, you're going to have to score double of what a high school dropout, or what a high school graduate scores for me to get you this exemption. And by providence and the grace of God, I did that. And then actually while I was in, because I was so economically disadvantaged, I was given the Boost program. So the Boost program, I don't know, in the Army they call it green to gold, I believe, but in the Navy at the time they called it the Boost program. It was for economically disadvantaged sailors who scored high enough to become an officer on the written test and had scored high enough on the physical test to endure all the rigors of Annapolis. So I literally got an appointment to Annapolis Naval Academy based on this program. Like, the captain of the base gave me this appointment, and I qualified. The written test I qualified, the physical, my military bearing. I was in about a year at the time. I mean, my evaluations, I was squared away, and I was so excited. This was a life-changing thing. And then I was reading over all the requirements, and it said, I don't know if they changed it, but you couldn't be married, which I thought was odd. You could be a Navy SEAL who deploys for a year at a time and be married, but you couldn't go to college and be married. They were like, no, it'd be impossible for a married guy to go through Annapolis. So I told my commander I couldn't do it because I was married. He was surprised I was married because I was so young. But he said, Rob, this is a life-changing, this is a game changer. This is going to change your life forever. Do not pass it up. It's going to take like 6 months before you start your first day anyway. The legal department can get you a quick divorce. You can move her up there. She could be living like your girlfriend. You live like you're married, but just tell people she's your girlfriend. And I said, I'm a Christian. I can't do that. Even though I was a Protestant, Protestants don't have as high a view. It's not a sacrament to them, marriage. But we did believe it was a sin to get divorced. And I said, I can't do that. I'm a Christian, Commander. He's like, Rob, you could have the world by the balls if you do this. Right now, you're struggling to make ends meet. You'll be struggling your whole life. This is a game changer. You'll be a naval officer. You'll have a 4-year degree from the best university, one of the best colleges in the world. Again, you can have the world by the kahunas. That's what he said to me. And I looked at him, I said, Commander, what good is it if I gain the whole world, but I lose my own soul? So I passed that up, and he was right. I was a blue-collar guy the rest of my life when I got out of the Navy, trying to make ends meet every week, struggling. But you know what? It was worth it, because I'll be married to that woman for 39 years this year. And we have 5 awesome kids who love the Lord. And I'm expecting my 13th and 14th grandchild this year. And we're a very close family. So, I've never been rich with money, but I'm rich with love, so I'm blessed. I know I made the right decision. On the flip side, Kamala Harris was, born with a silver spoon in her mouth, 29 years old. She had a law degree from a prestigious university, but that wasn't enough for her. She did sell her soul, in my opinion, my humble opinion. She started dating a married man. She was 29. She was dating a 60-year-old married man named Willie Brown. He was the most powerful man in California politics because he was the Speaker of the Assembly, and he appointed her to two commissioner jobs. One paid 70 grand and one paid like 98 grand. So that would be between the two jobs. She was double dipping between the two jobs. That'd be like the equivalent of making $400,000 a year here. And that's how she got her start in politics. Now, the liberal media that lied to us, telling us Joe Biden was perfect until it was obvious to the whole world. When 50 million people watched that debate, they had to cover for their butts and say, oh, we're amazed. We didn't know he was so sick. And then for 3 weeks, they just pounded him till he was forced to resign. And make no mistake, he was forced to resign. His own campaign manager, Cedric Richmond, said last night on CNN that he was pissed and Biden was pissed because Pelosi came to him and said, the donors are not giving you another penny. And Cedric Richmond said, there's no way you can win without any money. And Pelosi said, not only are they not going to give you a penny, they're not going to give any of us, senators or congresswomen, a penny. So you better drop out because we're going to keep pounding away and we're going to make you look horrible unless you drop out. And if we got to forcibly take you out with the 25th Amendment, we'll take you out with the 25th Amendment. These were the threats Nancy Pelosi made to him. So he was forced to drop out. And she quickly, being a San Francisco radical liberal, Nancy Pelosi she quickly endorsed a radical San Francisco liberal, Kamala Harris. So the same liberal media that told us Joe Biden was okay is now telling us how wonderful Kamala Harris is. She's like Joan of Arc, Mother Teresa, all wrapped up in one. And so they're not going to tell you about how she was the mistress of a 60-year-old married man when she was 29 for political purposes only. It was obvious to everybody. And one politician actually brought it up in one of ABC or NBC, and they quickly said, well, he was separated. He was still married. Separation was designed to help married people work things out. Okay. You guys are fighting all the time. You need to separate, go to marriage counsel and work it out. He was married and she knew it and she dated him. And she's 29 years old and I'm sure she didn't date him because he was a sexy 60-year-old. So that's Kamala Harris. So this has been her life experience, but so the left wants to judge you by your ethnicity, by the color of your skin. Last summer, if you watched me, I took a job throwing ice down here in Florida, and it was like 3 months until I got a different gig. But it was a really good exercise every day. It was like throwing medicine balls. So if you ever boxed and threw a medicine ball, it's a good workout throwing medicine balls. But we got paid per bag. I had me and a helper, and we got paid per bag. So to really make it worthwhile, we had to throw like 4,000 bags a day. So it was a tough workout. I lost like 30 pounds. That wasn't the best weight loss program I was on. When I first moved to Florida, I was a garbage man. And even though I had a CDL and I came to drive a truck, there was nothing available. I said, I'll do anything. So they had me on the back of the truck throwing what they call a gunslinger, slinging trash. Dude, that was the hardest job I ever did physically because you don't stop. You just keep running behind that truck. That was rough. I lost 40 pounds doing that job. So, but I'm not bringing up the ice to tell you what the best weight loss program is. But by the way, if you want to get in shape, get a hard physical job. Going to the gym an hour a day ain't going to do crap. Get a job where you're freaking busting your butt 12, 14 hours a day and you'll lose weight and get in shape, guaranteed. But I'm not bringing that up for that. I'm bringing it up because I was in the Florida sun. Every freaking ice box by every convenience store is like right where the sun is beating down. So I got dark. I was probably 5 shades darker than Kamala. So I was definitely more black than Kamala last summer. I'm not even joking. But like I said, there's one God and Father of all. We're all brothers and sisters in the long run. There's no difference, There's no difference, It's it's ridiculous. It's ignorant to judge people by skin color, by race, ethnicity. It's ridiculous. And I don't do it. I refuse to do it. But like I said, this is the game they play. So I wanted to get people to watch this so I can tell them the things that really matter. The things that matter are her political views and her policies. She's the most anti-Catholic politician I've ever seen. So there was a guy, I believe his name was Doug Brashear. He was appointed when she was a senator. He was appointed for a district court. So she had, the Senate got to question her. And she said, you belong to the Knights of Columbus, and they hold very extreme views on life and marriage. Were you aware of their views when you became a Knights of Columbus member? And he said, yes, they're the same views as my church, the Catholic Church. And she said, well, those views are too extreme for you to be a public servant. So she basically said that Catholics are disqualified because of our religious beliefs. This is what our founding fathers wrote the Constitution and Declaration of Independence for, because they came from a country where they were judged on their religious views. So she does not believe in religious freedom. In fact, she co-sponsored a bill, the Equality Act, that strips every church in America of their rights as a religious organization. Thankfully, it wasn't passed, but this is what she supports. She also has the most extreme, radical, disgusting views on abortion. She voted against the Abortion Survivor Act. And if you're not familiar with that, it was a case in Chicago. I told you about this in my last video, where this nurse came before the Illinois Senate and told this horrifying story. She had tears in her eyes. Most members in the Senate had tears in her eyes. She said, I was assisting an abortion, and then I noticed the baby was whimpering and crying and heavy breathing in a garbage can. So I picked it up, and I told the doctor, I said, doctor, the baby's still alive. And he said, there's nothing I could do about it. It was marked for abortion. So she said, I'd hold this baby suffering and dying for 45 minutes since that baby died. So the Illinois Senate passed a Born Alive Act. If a baby was marked for abortion, but somehow it survived this horrific thing, the doctor was required by law to resuscitate it. And the only state senator to vote against it was Barack Obama. He was state senator in Chicago in Illinois at the time. And the reason he voted against it was the same reason Kamala Harris voted against the same bill for the whole nation, because they're both bought and paid for by Planned Parenthood. I call them Planned Parenthood because Planned Parenthood was started by a woman named Margaret Sanger, who said on 60 Minutes, talking to Mike Wallace, Chris Wallace's dad back in the day, you can still get the black and white video of this, that she really enjoyed giving speeches at Ku Klux Klan rallies because they were very enthusiastic about what I had to say. She said, I really admire the Nazis' eugenics program, and I want to bring that to America because Negroes are human weeds that need to be exterminated. So I'm going to put my sterilization clinics, Planned Parenthood, in every, she called them colored neighborhoods now. You could say we know that 90% of Planned Parenthood clinics are in black neighborhoods. She also gave a speech to her supporters and said, we have to find black leaders that we could pay off that can encourage their people that killing their babies is health care. There you go, Kamala Harris, Barack Obama, and even Oprah Winfrey. There was a sign, I think, in Mississippi, someone sent me years ago, with Oprah Winfrey with a couple black women all smiling and saying abortion is health care. So they convinced the whole generation that killing their babies was good. It would help them, help their families prosper. And today, because of Planned Parenthood's plan to exterminate the black race, more babies are aborted, more black babies are aborted every year in New York City than born. So she sold out our race because I'm black. I'm more black than she is, remember? So Kamala sold out our race. And, one day she's going to learn. What good is it to gain the whole world if you lose your own soul? So, a lot of people say, oh, well, the Republicans, they're not so pro-life because they support this and that. Listen, if the Republican Party was a church, I wouldn't go to it. It would be too liberal. But it's not. It's a political party. And because a lot of Catholic Christians and Protestant Christians are involved in the Republican Party, it is way more pro-life than the Democrat Party. Donald Trump, through his promise of giving us originalist judges, got Roe v. Wade overturned. And he said he's going to leave it to the states. Kamala Harris said, send me a bill that will codify Roe v. Wade and I'll sign it. Send me a bill that'll allow abortion through the 9th month and beyond. Yes, she believes in infanticide. This is like mainstream Democrat Party beliefs now. I'll sign it. So the difference is vast. They're not the same. The difference is vast. So it's very important. If you are pro-life, you have to vote Republican. It's just as clear as day. And most importantly, I want to add this too. So she attacked this Judge Bashir for being Catholic. I think it's very important that we identify as Catholic. Everybody wants to identify, and Kamala Harris, she actually, when she introduces herself, she uses her pronouns. I'm not even joking. She uses her pronouns when she's amongst liberal company, In fact, GovTrack, who's supposed to be like a nonpartisan government accountability website, they rated her as the most liberal senator in 2019. Her last year she was a senator before she became vice president. And I went to look that up again to see who was next, because I wasn't sure if it was Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders. And I couldn't find it. I'm looking and I'm like, how come I can't find this? And I seen they got called out. They erased that. And when they said, why did you take that down? Because now, of course, just like Joe Biden, they're going to act like they're moderate. She's going to act like she's a moderate. She'll probably get a moderate governor and try and, convince people that are misinformed that she's a moderate. And their explanation, it's called GovTrack. Their explanation was, well, now we go by 2-year cycles. So that was only for 1 year. So we didn't think that was fair. But she was rated the most liberal senator, more liberal than Bernie Sanders, more liberal than Elizabeth Warren, like extreme, radical liberal. And she was proudly identifying herself as a liberal until she's running for president. Now you're going to see, like I said, they're going to try and make her Joan of Arc. The media is going to praise her, and they're going to whitewash all this. Even like I said, I looked for it and I couldn't find it. And then I seen Elon Musk wrote something on X. He's like, yeah, now the internet's trying to erase Kamala Harris's history. And he laughed. He said, LOL. And they can do it, except Elon Musk bought Twitter, so they can't do it as good as they used to do it in the past. But they can do quite a bit still. But we need to identify as Catholics. We've been Christians, true Christians have been identifying as Catholics from the very beginning. According to J.N.D. Kelly, a Protestant historian and theologian, he says Christians have been identifying as Catholics from the 1st century. And he says this because in 108 AD, we have writings from St. Ignatius of Antioch. And in it, he says, where the Catholic Church is, there is Jesus Christ. And J.N.D. Kelly makes a good point, being the brilliant historian scholar he is. He says, he said this so nonchalantly, like everybody knew what he was talking about. So, and this was 108. So obviously in the 1st century, they started using that. And, when I was a Protestant, I used to say, no, the Bible says in Acts that they were called Christians in Antioch. Well, the second bishop of Antioch, Evodius, he replaced St. Peter. Peter was the first bishop of Antioch and then went off and became the first bishop of Rome. That's why we call him our first pope. But the second bishop of Antioch, Evodius, actually coined the phrase Christian, meaning little Christ. And we know this, according to history, from St. Ignatius of Antioch, who said, where the Catholic Church is, there is Jesus Christ. So it's important we identify as Catholics. And the reason J.N.D. Kelly, the Protestant historian, says they started identifying themselves as Catholic Christians, just like Catholic being the first name, Christian being the last name, was because there was a lot of people in the first century, these little breakaway churches that held heterodox views. Like they believed, the Gnostics didn't believe Jesus came in the flesh. The Gnostics didn't believe that when Jesus said, "This is my body, this is my blood," he didn't mean it. They said that was just symbolic. So there was a lot of unorthodox views, heterodox views. So the true Christians call themselves Catholic, meaning universal. Universal. No matter where you live, this is the universal church of Christ. Jesus established one church in the entire universe, and we call it the Catholic Church, and we identify with the doctrines, the Trinity. Jesus came in the flesh, all the basic Christian doctrines. And then you can even see in the Nicene Creed in 325 AD, they used the word Catholic. St. Augustine used the word Catholic. You can look at all these Catholic, we've always identified as Catholic Christians to separate us from the unorthodox people that call themselves Christians. So the Catholic Church was always the true church of Christ. Jesus established one church, and the Catholic Church is the only church that can prove its lineage. Like my bishop can prove that he was ordained by a bishop who was ordained by a bishop all the way down to one of the apostles. You just look at history. See Pope Peter, then you see Linus, then Cletus, then Clement, all the way up to Pope Francis. We have an unbroken chain. But not only that, we have an unbroken chain of doctrine. Our doctrine never changed. A lot of churches change with the times. Our doctrine has never changed. Our morality has never changed. We called abortion a sin in our first catechism, the Didache in 50 AD, and we call it a sin in today's catechism in 2024. The Catholic Church does not change. So be proud, identify yourself as Catholic, and stay Catholic.